What if there's something that you could do to not just safeguard your own home, to actually increase certain kinds of energies and to hold a certain resonant frequency within inside of yourself, for your loved ones, and for your home and for your business? Well, we're going to jump into the wonderful world of grid work today. Ready to get started? Let's do it. Welcome back, adepts and initiates. Before we get started, go ahead and click on that subscribe button so that we can stay in constant contact with all the great content coming out on this channel. All right, so grid work. What an interesting topic to even consider, right? When you hear the word grid, right, it conjures images of things like an electrical board or a city and how organized it can actually be in terms of the flow and the movement of that energy. Whether that be an electrical current held within your mobile device or actually the flow of the people who actually live in said city. When we talk about this concept of grid work today, though, it's going to be very similar and yet different at the same time. We are now looking at effectively affecting and influencing the very energy that you have in house within your home, as well as how it can also work within the professional settings of your office, of your professional spaces, by and large at the communities that we live in at large. And so as we talk about this, what we're going to be looking at is sort of a mix of two parts and pieces that we're going to be putting together. One is what we're going to say is bioelectric. That's our own consciousness, our own awareness, and how that can actually interplay and even influence the geopathic or earth and environmental and elemental-based energies. We're going to be putting these two together when that bioelectric or our own consciousness comes into contact with the environmental and elemental energies around us. Oh, amazing things can happen. And so what I want to do is really just start off by saying that the intention with all of this is to provide more useful information for you, the viewer, and to do things that can actually help to uplift, to enrich and enhance your everyday life, and to utilize the very concepts around spirituality and consciousness at large to be able to influence and to create extraordinary results and experiences in our lives now. So, as we look at this then, the concepts of grid work. Basically, we're going to start off first and foremost by identifying, let's say, that this box is my home, okay? And so what we have with a house, right, we have the four walls. These four walls protect us against the environmental influences from the winds, the rains, the bugs. Well, not always the bugs. However, the sunshine, all these different parts and pieces that can impact and influence us as human beings being human. Now, with that being said, those are the physical aspects that we get encountered and provided for by the physical structures of our homes. Now, what if we could actually generate, to create, and to build a structure that metaphysically also protects us as well? That's what we're going to be talking about today, is how we can build a basic structure, metaphysically speaking, to provide that safety, that sanctuary, and that sense of safety within our homes. So, as we're looking here, one of the first things that we want to do is just kind of be comfortable within our homes. You know, we want to be there, and not necessarily to say that we need to be so familiar, because you can absolutely put these into a new home that you move into. However, we want to know where it is that we are living. Right? What is our relationship to the land that we're dwelling upon? We'll be doing this in more advanced techniques, yet this is an initial consideration that we want to have. What is the land that we're living on? I'm going to use all of my information, generally speaking, in terms of that information. So I live up the island of Maui in an area called Kula. Okay, so I live up in this area called Kula. And so I want to know the area a little bit, or rather be open to getting to know the area a little bit. When I first moved here in 2016, I moved into this exact house, which is my grandfather's old house. And so I had known this place, though I didn't necessarily have a relationship with this space. And so I wanted to get to know it a little bit more. And so I spent a good amount of time just being on the land itself. Now for you, in terms of if you're currently living in a house or an apartment, you just want to know your area. And by and large, if you've been living there for a little while, you have a fairly good relationship with it. If it's a new area that you're getting into, just remain open to knowing more about the place, and whether that be relating to it by walking around your space, getting to know others who have lived there for a while, that's just going to be an ongoing part of this whole process. Next, so I live in this house, Grandpa's old house, right? And so I want to get to know a little bit more about the house as well. And so, for example, directionally, where is the alignment of the house itself? And so kind of looking at it like here, generally speaking, are the corners of the house, right? Directionally, this corner here that I'm in, this is the den, and so in this corner here is the east-facing corner of the house. Sometimes it lines up really well, oftentimes it doesn't, and that's okay. We just want to know directionally where are the four corners, the four cardinal directions within your house. Is as we really start to look at this, east, south, west, and north are going to be the pillars. And I'll talk about that as we look at really building the structure. In this episode, we're going to keep it relatively basic, introducing the ideas, and I'll also be doing instructional videos on the actual building process itself. So directionally, where are the four corners? Additionally, in all of that, then, also comes in where are the entrances. The primary entrance to this house is there. And the secondary is a screen door just behind this camera. And so we want to know then, directionally, north, east, south, and west, where are those cardinal directions? Where are our entrances? We have other ones as well. In this house, for example, there is a garage door that's here, and a door that goes out to the garage there. Okay? Primary and secondary entrances are things that we really want to know, though. So as we look at that then, we see how all of that lines up. Now, when we start to talk about this, though, in relationship to establishing a grid, these parts will come into play. And again, if you have that alignment, terrific. Sometimes, though, the cardinal directions and the corners of your dwelling, apartment, condo, house, I use the same concepts when I go to a hotel. You can still use an interplay of those. We just want to know east, south, west, and north. Where are those in your house? Now, once we have that, generally speaking, then we have our entrances identified. Then we have an idea in terms of what the space, the physical space itself, looks like. Every house has the capacity for what's called a threshold. And the threshold is almost like this natural awareness of the house that can act as a barrier for the house itself, right? So this is my grandfather's house. He built this back in the 70s. He had this land since the 50s. And so it's a family home that has been around for a while. And Grandpa built this house, not necessarily with his own hands, but he built this house and has been a part of my family for a while. So the threshold of Grandpa, of now myself and the boys living here, is incredibly strong. It has been fortified by decades of a person occupying, pouring energy, emotion, intention, love into this home. And that in and of itself creates a threshold. When we talk about, for example, inviting a vampire in, right? You need to be invited inside to cross a threshold. Thresholds are a thing, and is a line of, to a certain degree, defense and intentionality as well. Be very considerate and discerning about who you invite into your home, because once that invitation has been extended, then it's generally an open invitation until it's consciously and energetically closed. That's the whole thing we'll talk about as well. So now though, what we have is one layer of protection, which is known as a threshold. And for you who may be moving into a new home, a home that was just recently built, a new space, this is going to be something to look at, being very intentional about, and building over time. Now, as we look at that threshold, then that's an energy in and of itself. As we talk about grid work, we can utilize this as, in and of itself, something to work with as a line of defense, a field of integrity. Next, we've got our 4 directions. These are effectively 4 pillars. This house lines up really well, so we're very blessed. However, these 4 areas of the house are effectively pillars, like a foundation for a home. They are fundamental pieces that I can lay energy into. And I do that by using a structure that can hold information. And in this case, we're talking about crystals. In the 4 corners of this house, I have certain crystals that are planted, that I've treated not just with energy, with intentionality as well. And it extends then another layer of energetic protection that exists and emanates. Now in this case, depending upon how you work with these crystals, it can be a small field that extends a few inches. This one extends actually a good 30 feet out in all directions. And so we've got a robust, energetic field around this house. Now the thing about that is it's not just around the house, right? At the core of this home is also a very specific type of geometry. So depending upon your intention, you can create, again with crystalline structures, certain kinds of geometry. When we talk about geometry, we're talking about circles, triangles, squares, so on and so forth. And we can actually develop, based upon those geometrical structures, those geometrical patterns, very specific intentions that align with very specific frameworks, right? If we're talking about general protection, then, a square is wonderful. If we're talking about sort of an added layer of not just protection, of containment, then you can actually have 2 squares. When we talk about more energy that's powerful and expressive, then we can go into triangles. If we're talking about more harmony and peace, then circles. And so I'll be going into all of this on the instructional pieces later. However, then what we have at, say, the middle, and I'm just going to keep this simple, as close to the middle of the house as you can get, is a geometrical pattern. And so say, for example, this was a square. And say, for example, then this is sort of the center point, almost like the intelligent design, the intention for your house, for your home. That is the core piece, and it can then extend out to those corners, utilizing the structure of the cardinal directions, tying to that geometry, having an added layer with your threshold, right? And so this begins to come into a deeper part in terms of just the fundamental aspects of creating a grid for your house, for your home, for your business, and for professional services as well. What this does, as we continue on this is part 1 of 2. As we continue on this, we're going to go into even multiple layers, both out on the very periphery of the property you may live in, and also down and up in terms of the land, the aina itself, to provide power protection, and coming in and bringing those more, let's say, celestial pieces as well. So you have an all-encompassing, fully embodied and robust system to hold the very field of integrity and intentionality. All that means is we can create energetic structures that can support you, your family, your business, your community in all aspects of life. Ooh. For now, though, I feel like that's a good place to stop. Love and aloha. Take care. And ahui ho.